What a gorgeous end to the day in Denver, and we are headed into a mild night, not too chilly here in the metro area.
A much different story in the mountains and higher foothills where people are trying to stay upright. High wind warnings remain in effect through tomorrow. So let's start there with 9 News meteorologist Chris Bianchi. I mean, the wind's been blowing there for a couple days now.
And by the way, those two things are related. You mentioned the warmth and you mentioned the wind. These are downsloping Chinook winds, and that's what's actually going to keep us so warm tonight. Our low temperature going to be in the mid 40s for us in Denver, flirting with a record overnight warm low temperature for us. But the other and the main story here, folks, is the wind again for us here in the foothills and in the mountains. Don't worry, though, if you're just getting sick and tired of this wind, not too much longer to go. We've got another, I would say, 18 to 24 hours of this wind, and then we will relax that wind for several days after tonight and tomorrow morning. High wind warning in place, though, for the higher foothills and the mountains. That goes until 11 a.m. tomorrow, and that wind will be concentrated here above 8,000 feet, the usual east-facing slopes. So think the Peak-to-Peak Highway, Berthoud Pass, Loveland Pass. A lot of our typically windier spots will be windy. The I-70 corridor between Idaho Springs and about Vail Pass. That's going to stay windy for us here as we head over the next few hours. Some of that wind does get down into Denver tomorrow afternoon, but then that wind relaxes tomorrow night, and then the warmth is the big story. I'll show you that full 7-day outlook in just a few minutes.
A man from Loveland is in custody after police say he walked into a tanning salon and attacked 2 people with a hammer.
9 News anchor Phil Lipoff is here with what police say was a random attack, Phil?
Yeah, Alex, and that's what makes this attack even scarier. Hammer scary enough. They don't think it was targeted. Police say just before 7 last night, 20-year-old Kyle Behrens walked into Endless Summer Tanning, hiding both a hammer and a knife. He's accused of first pulling out the hammer, attacking a 21-year-old employee, hitting her in the head more than a dozen times, then dragging her into a side room. While he was trying to set up some sort of barricade, police say the employee was able to run into another room where a customer was hiding. Together, they locked the door. That's when police say Behrens broke through that door, pulled out the knife he'd been hiding, and then tried to stab both of them.
The two of them worked to not only disarm the suspect, but then to fight for their lives still, while initiating a call to 911. So if there's any credit that we can give these 2 victims, unbelievable. They are alive today because of their will to survive.
The salon released a statement saying, in part, last night's event deeply affected our team, and we are taking time to support those involved. Thank you for your love and support. We feel it, and we love you all. Behrens is in custody, held on $500,000 cash bond. The employee has serious injuries and is still in the hospital tonight. Customer suffered minor injuries. Phil Lipoff, 9 News.
A person hospitalized in an apartment fire in Westminster has died. The fire happened just before 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon near 80th Avenue and Wolf Street. 2 people who lived there were hospitalized. Today, fire officials announced 1 person had died. The other is expected to survive. The Red Cross is helping 2 families who can no longer stay in their homes because of damage from that fire. Still not clear how this fire started. The coroner's office has not released the name of the person who died just yet.
Denver is moving forward with a plan to fund infrastructure improvements around the proposed women's soccer stadium in town. Denver Summit FC Stadium is set to be built near I-25 and Broadway at Santa Fe Yards. Mayor Mike Johnston promised $50 million in city money. Last month, City Council committee postponed voting on financial agreements because of a lack of specifics and lingering distrust between the mayor and council. In response, the soccer club said they could take their stadium somewhere else outside of Denver. Today, the team president told City Council that was not meant to be a threat.
It was never meant to challenge council in any way. We need to have a home for this team, and we need to do that in 2028.
I just have to say publicly that as a female and as a leader on council whose job it is to help my colleagues usher this in, felt like a direct attack to me because I was asking questions.
Today, City Council saw a breakdown to the $50 million pledged. It would be $35 million for the land, $7 million for earthwork and excavation and more infrastructure improvements that bring the total to almost $56 million, so $6 million over the original pledge. Still, the committee approved sending the agreement to the full City Council for consideration Monday. It would have to be approved twice there over 2 weeks. The team did not commit to stop discussions with other possible locations of where they could play. They insisted they have a commitment with the NWSL to play somewhere in 2028.
Ski patrollers in Telluride could be headed towards a strike. If that does happen, the resort says they may have to close lifts and terrain. The union's contract expired at the end of August. On Monday, an overwhelming majority of their members rejected the resort's best and final offer, arguing it didn't allow their members to afford to live in the community they serve. The resort says the offer was a 13% increase for the upcoming season. They say the union wanted a 27% bump. The union is not set a date to go on strike, but their members have already authorized one. Telluride ski area just opened for the season this past weekend.
One of the largest fire departments in Colorado is changing when firefighters start their shifts. A new sleep study revealed just how little rest those crews are getting. For decades, West Metro firefighters have worked 48-hour shifts starting at 7 a.m., and they often respond to calls throughout the night with very little uninterrupted sleep. Earlier this year, the department partnered with Yale School of Public Health and the Colorado Office of eHealth Innovation to track the sleep of 166 firefighters over several days. The data showed firefighters are averaging about 6 hours of sleep a day and are frequently woken up early to begin their shifts. So starting in January, West Metro will move to a shift start at 9 a.m., allowing firefighters to wake up more naturally on that first day of a shift. Department leaders hope the extra rest will reduce fatigue and improve performance.
This later shift start time should get it to the point where our firefighters almost don't need an alarm unless they're commuting from a lot further away.
The department is going to track the sleep again under the new schedule and compare results later this spring to see if the changes have a benefit. Folks in Loveland have been pressuring their government to address the issue of homelessness, in particular since the city shut down its only overnight shelter for adults back in September. There's a temporary spot they've opened through the winter, but they need more space.
So this week, they're putting up some big tents near that building to increase capacity. 9 News reporter Colton Chavez is in Loveland. Hi, Colton.
Yeah, hello. So they're putting it behind the Loveland Resource Center. They're going to put those tents on the back end of that building. The city says they're going to bring 4 of them in, and they should be ready to go by Friday night.
And just really trying to understand what's the best path forward, what's the best next step.
In Loveland, the path to helping the unhoused means doubling the capacity at their overnight shelter and resource center.
We now have 42 overnight spaces.
City spokesperson Nicole Yost says it's made possible by adding what the city describes as 4 FEMA-grade tents in the space behind the Loveland Resource Center.
That's just to paint a picture of what the tents look like. And so these were actually the tents that we used at the South Railroad facility.
The SRF shelter was closed by the city back in September.
But when the SRF closed, originally the LRC was not intended for overnight shelter, but we created, it's under a temporary use permit that expires on March 15th.
Yo says the Loveland Resource Center is struggling with space.
We're not the only shelter that has capacity issues, so that is an ongoing conversation. Having the FEMA tents gives more structure, security, and just allows there to be more consistent overnight space for those who need it.
The city of Loveland understands the tents are just a temporary fix, a path they hope will lead them to a long-term solution.
And we're really excited about focusing on that path while taking care of those and doing the right thing in the meantime.
And tonight, the city of Loveland, they tell me what they'd like to see done is possibly partnering up with a nonprofit to help create a more permanent solution. Live in Loveland tonight, Colton Chavez, 9 News.
Colorado is one step closer to opening its 3rd medical school. The University of Northern Colorado says its College of Osteopathic Medicine just reached a new milestone. It achieved its pre-accreditation status. That means they can start recruiting their first class to begin learning next fall. UNC says the focus will be on rural health and primary care. The college hopes to graduate 150 new doctors every year with the goal of tackling Colorado's growing physician shortage.
NASA is going to get some help for an upcoming moon mission from Coloradans. The space agency recently announced they're going to bring along a lunar lander made by a Golden-based company called Lunar Outpost. The lunar lander will help determine how humans on the moon impact the lunar surface. Researchers at CU Boulder will help with that work. As part of its Artemis program, NASA hopes to send astronauts back to the moon by 2027. But at this point, the Colorado-built lunar lander isn't scheduled to launch until 2028.